About this slide. When I went to school, except there's a typo, it's 500 to 600. When I went to school in the 80s, there was about 20 schools that offered jobs, meteorology degrees, atmospheric science. How many when you went to school? That's the same. Now there's tons, almost 60, across the fruited plain, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Alaska. That means, gang, there's 500 to 600 graduates. Okay, take your notes, write this down. This is a mandatory reading. Professors too. John Knox, University of Georgia. Is John here? Always wanted to meet you. Anyway, John Knox quantified what I said at the AMS in Atlanta several years ago. Recent and future trends in U.S. undergraduate meteorology enrollments degree recipients. There's not enough jobs for those in the meteorology degree. If you want to just party and be in the frat house and do the bare minimum, be a C student, you're screwed. Next slide. These are what you need, gang. You need GIS. You need web editing abilities. I cannot tell you how many college students I ask jobs to do to update a web page who cannot do basic HTML Dreamweaver. How many of you have never had a class in it? Raise your hand. Professors, change your curriculum. You do not need Fortran. It's a waste of time. Take web. Take GIS. If you want a job, you got to do Excel. Get a certification in something that no one else is doing. Excel, PowerPoint. Take a class in journalism. Get involved in some research. Do something that no one else is doing. Don't be like everyone else. Next slide. GIS. Is there a pointer at least? Can I do that? There's not even a pointer. Okay, I'll point. Okay. All right, GIS. That's a map on the left of tornado tracks. On the right, that's individual flash flood hotspots, identifying all the spots in counties by high, medium, low, which spots are really, really bad. Okay? That's all GIS. How many in this room have taken a GIS class? Not many hands. That's a skill set an employer might want to have. Don't take Fortran. It's a waste of time. Next slide. Unless you want to what?
Work at Anchor.
Okay, then you can take Fortran. Web editing. I had all my students 4 years ago make top 10 lists for heat, hail, high wind, tornadoes, winter storms, whatever. Everyone got their own web page. Isn't that cool to put on your own resume and web page that you did? Next thing, we had individual pages on lightning, on weather radio, all types of web pages. In fact, one of my students made the national heat page in Washington, D.C. by the Weather Service. Stunk. It was awful. If you wanted to go to sleep, it was perfect. All it did was blah, 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 with nothing. There was not one picture on there. He updated the page. It's now national done by a student. Next slide. Excel. How many of you have really taken a hardcore class in Excel? Raise your hand. Not very bad. As Bill Clinton would say, that's very bad. I think you should do more than that. Anyway, next slide. PowerPoint. Lots of things you can do with PowerPoint, especially the new version. Some of my students make historical presentations when I go to the historical societies for the Great Flood, an office tour, PowerPoint, whatever. Next slide. Okay, research. Research is important as well. So we got involved with St. Louis University and did a detailed several-year study of heavy snow climatology that we use and did composite charts done by students. You guys getting the drift? We get an amen? How about an amen? Amen. Get in the game. Get in the game. Stop playing defense. Play offense. Get in the game. Don't be like everyone else. Do you want to be working at Wendy's or at the Weather Service? Do you want to be working at Barron's or Lowe's? Next slide. Next slide. Okay, these are some examples. How many of you have ever done a historical weather poster? Cool. Where'd you do it? Which one is it? Oh, cool. Historical. How many of your schools have really boring walls at your schools? Just boring walls with not cool weather stuff. A weather office should look like a weather office. You should have weather stuff there, not stuff from the 40s. These are cool posters, 36 by 48. This is the Severe Outbreak in 1974. Next slide. That's the one, Jenna, and look behind. Everyone look behind. There it is in the back left. They made that this summer on the flash flood in Louisville a couple years ago. All these were done by a student on the left. Whether it be the flood of 37, the super outbreak, tornadoes, ice storms, whatever. I want weather offices to look like weather offices, not like morgues. Attorney forecaster position, she had a journalism minor in college. She came very close to getting a job. That really interested me. That helped me to do things for our WCM, such as doing press releases, sending out notes to the media. This is our shareholders report we do every year. We send out to all of Congress. Let them know we're not screwing the people. We're giving them a bang for their buck. We want to be number one, not number 100. Next slide. Journalism. This is the Great Flood of 37. Sending out public information statements, web-page articles, publishing studies, whatever. I cannot tell you how many applications. I got Alan Gerard back there, my friend back there. How many applications do we get that are just horrible for app jobs? People can't spell the term satellite. I saw it 10 times recently on a job application. I mean, I didn't know there were that many spellings of satellite. Next slide. Okay, press release. You got to be able to communicate, gang. You got to be able to convey what you're trying to say in a short soundbite. When you're doing media interviews, they want it in 6 seconds. Quick, innovative. These are some guys that you may meet at this conference, and gals, that made a difference, that were different than everyone else. How many people know Mike Gibson? Oh my God, every hand should be up here. Every hand. If you don't go meet Mike Gibson this week, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. This was a software engineer that didn't like his job at Windows with Bill Gates. Okay? And he said, you know, his wife said, what do you like to do? He said, well, I like radar. He went on his own to design the best, in my opinion. This is my opinion. I'm taking off my hat. Anyway, GR Level 2, the Gibson Ridge radar stuff. It rocks. You want to give for Christmas from your parents? Tell them to get you a home copy of the GR Level Ridge. It rocks. Steve Piltz over there, the funny guy over here on the left, he came up with Storm Ready. How many people heard of Storm Ready? Came up with that, wrote it on a bar napkin. It's out on a bar. That's how he came up with this. It's all across the nation. Next slide. Dan Baumgart. How many folks know Dan Baumgart? That's pathetic. Oh, you know Dan Baumgart. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Anyway, he is the best tutorial on cloud microphysics in the country. It's on the La Crosse National Weather Service website. It rocks. If you want to learn how to forecast freezing drizzle versus sleet versus snow versus whatever, that's your guy. And then there's the master. How many of you know the master? Every hand better go up. He changed the world. One man. Changed everything in meteorology. That guy right there. Next slide. Go-getters. These are some folks who volunteered for the crazy man up front, and John Ogren, my friend in the back, volunteered at both Louisville and Indy, got a SCEP job. She came back through northern Indiana back here. All her hard work. She created the first poster on how to create historical weather posters. Did that at the NWA in St. Louis in 2005 and won $50. Next slide. Here's some other volunteers. She got her volunteer, Jane Marie, she's up at Marquette because she had a GIS certification. This guy worked his tail off to do anything, including planting pansies for me on Beautification Day. Man, that's hardcore. Next slide. He works as an agricultural meteorologist in Kentucky. Another one of my students, he currently works for United Airlines in Chicago as an aviation forecaster. Forecasting volcanic ash, TAFs in Australia, whatever it is. Next slide. Go-getters. These are folks who work hard and do more than the other folks. Who want, I had one girl, Stephanie Dutton, that volunteered 40 hours unpaid 3 years ago. 40 hours unpaid. She wanted a job. Her dad says, I want you to have a job by the time you graduate. Are you willing to do more or just hang out and watch Friends reruns? Oh, that's great. Next slide. Meteorology is not just the weather service, as you heard earlier. Next slide. Whether it be large corporations, energy, energy, energy. Visit these corporations. Go visit folks. Go visit folks. Do not sit in your cubicle. Don't sit in your room watching reruns of something stupid. Next slide. Military, TV, radio. Next. Lots of opportunities. State climatologists. Mesonets are going up. Help the mesonet. Next slide. Next slide. NASA, my friends at Sport. It's great to see someone ahead of me. Next slide. Lots of opportunities. Would you read that as loud as you can?
Getting your foot in the door in any of these places will greatly benefit your future career.
That is correct. Next slide. All right, we have David Letterman every night, the top 10 list, right? Let's do David Letterman. Next. 10, people skills. Number one reason to hire people is your people skills. People skills, customer service, innovation. If your attitude stinks, I don't want you. Slide. GIS. Everyone say that as loud as you can. GIS. Take a class instead of introduction to field hockey. Next slide. Computer skills. The more you know, the more you grow. Next slide. Innovate, be different. Next slide. Networking. How many of you came to this conference today with business cards? Raise your hand. How many of you did not? Not good. I suggest there's an office supply company just around the corner. I would make business cards tonight. I would hand them out to every single person you see at this conference. Next slide. Research project. Get involved and do something different. People say, what do you mean? What do you mean? How are we doing in fog, gang, across America? I rest my case, as Ross Perot would say. I rest my case. Anyway, next slide. Conferences. Get involved. When there's an anniversary, Alan Gerard and I do this a bunch. When there's a big anniversary of a tornado, a famous event, go to that city. Dan McCarthy does it. Do that. Go to that town and do a big ceremony and let people know that April 3rd, 74 can happen, and it did happen this year. We kept telling people, didn't we, Tom? We kept saying it's going to happen, and it did. Next slide. Story. Okay, next slide. Volunteer. Say that louder.
Volunteer.
Next slide. Say that again.
Volunteer.
Next slide. Oh, we always finish with the far side. Would you read that as loud as you can?
Yes, I believe there's a question in the back.
Okay, thank you. You guys have any questions? Did you enjoy that? All right, what do you think? You're all scared to death. That's okay. I wanted you to come out of this scared to death. I want you to think about being different and getting in the game. I want you to have a job and work for some of those folks in the back there. If you do the bare minimum, I don't think you'll be with me. Do more than everyone else. Thank you very much.